Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, we are joined today by freshman from the Colgate women's hockey team, Elyssa Biederman. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Elyssa, and how's everything going?
It's great. How about you?
I'm doing well. Obviously, it's very early in the morning, but I'm trying to just enjoy the day, I guess. Now, obviously, your team's entering the second half of the year as a top five team in the country. My question to you is, how would you evaluate your team's performance as of now, especially after just beating Princeton yesterday?
Yeah, I think we've had a really solid season so far, playing some pretty big names and teams this season. And as a first year, it's interesting to experience, playing the former national champions and all that. So, yeah, I think we've played really well, and we've got a lot of room to grow. But I'm really proud of the first half and the start to the second half that we've had.
Now, I'm curious how your team handles the pressure of being a top-ranked team in the country, especially since your team's always going to have a target on your back. And what's the key for your team's consistency this year, in your opinion?
I think we always focus in about ourselves and the term us, about our mentality and our environment and everything like that. And I think not worrying about the outside pressures and the media as much, and focusing on what we can do better and what we want to implement into our game is really important, and how we continue to get better and develop throughout the season.
Now, talk about what it's like playing in the ECAC and just the competition you face every night.
Yeah, it's really exciting league. I think it's growing, and we've got some pretty good teams. So it's really fun playing against them and going on the road and everything. It's a great experience, and um, yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. So
Yeah, I was just checking out the pairwise before this interview, and there's like a few teams in the ECAC that might not make the tournament, even though they're one of the best teams in the country, just because of how tight everything is. So I just thought it just shows you how deep the conference is this year.
yeah, it's super cool.
Now, talk about the biggest improvement you've made to your game this year, heading into college.
I think one of the biggest adjustments in like coming from amateur to college is the speed, and I think um, I have the ability when I came in, and I think just getting used to the pace was probably the biggest adjustment, and I think it was also my biggest improvement, because I think I've gotten used to it, and um, as I continue to get more comfortable this year, I think that'll really improve my game.
Now, one big trip that your team had this year is you guys got to go to Ohio State. Just talk about that experience of playing the top-ranked team in the country and what you took away from it, even though the results didn't go your way.
Yeah, it was a great road trip. I think we learned a lot about ourselves as a team, and our identity, and that if we stick to our identity, we can stick with the big teams. And it's also obviously great exposure to play people out of our league and the WCHA and all that. And I think it was a great learning experience of what we're capable of and how we can handle pressure like that. And yeah, it was a great test, and I think we learned a lot from it.
Now, talk about your team's goals and expectations for the rest of this season.
I think we have many of the same goals as everyone else, but we want to win the ECAC again, and we want to win the national championship. And this team, I think, is really special, and we're all in this year and trying to, win just like everyone else.
Now, let's transition now and talk about the beginning of your hockey career and kind of work all the way up to where you are today. So, just doing research on yourself, it says that you're from Franklin, Michigan. So, talk about growing up there and how did you start playing hockey?
Yeah, so I was about 2 or 3, I'd say, and I remember going to our local ice rink, and my brother would play, and I remember just watching him and being like, well, I want to do that. And next thing I was in, learned to skate lessons, and I started hockey the next year, so really just took off from there.
And who was your favorite player growing up? Was it someone in the NHL or was it a women's player in the national team?
I would have to say, like, really growing up, the Red Wings were really good when I was young. So I'd say, like, when I went to those games, I'd always watch like Pavel Datsyuk or Henrik Zetterberg, but I never really had like a real role model. I kind of just wanted to be my own player and figure out like how different I wanted to be and play the style that I wanted to play.
Have you tried to pull off any Pavel Datsyuk moves, at least in practice, when you guys do those shootout drills?
Yeah, I definitely have. I don't think I have the same skill set as him, but yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. As long as it works once in a while, that's all that counts. So now, before college hockey, you played for Little Caesars. So talk about your experience there and how'd you get the opportunity to go there?
Yeah, Little Caesars is an amazing organization, and I was very fortunate to be able to have such an amazing organization around me. Um, I switched over at 14U from boys, and Minot Rayom, she was the person who reached out to me and was like, we want you here at Caesars, and I think it would be great for your development and experience. And I think she did a very good job of setting up the resources and aligning everything with coaches, facilities, and everything that we could need to develop it as players. And I think my group of players that we were there, we were really lucky and fortunate to have everything that we have. And I think it really set us up for great future experiences.
Was the transition tough from boys to girls hockey, or was it sort of easy transition because there wasn't? Because I know some girls transition from boys to girls after during hitting, and some do it before. So I'm just curious what if the transition was easy or hard for you.
Yeah, I think I never played hitting, so I never had to get used to not hitting. But I think for me, I was playing at a high level of boys, and I think my goal was to transition with the same pace that I came with. And I think I was surrounded with a bunch of other girls that had played boys hockey the year before. So I think for me, it wasn't really hard. It was more like I want to keep the development that I've made in boys hockey and make sure that I'm continuing that in girls.
And what's the best memory you have with Little Caesars?
Um, well, we won back-to-back national championships, and that was pretty cool. But I think the group of girls that was around me was the best part. They're my best friends still, and we talk a lot, and when we go home, we hang out. But we're all at our different respective colleges during the season. So
Yeah, just talk a little bit about the players that you played with at Little Caesars that are currently playing Division One.
yeah, we had a big bunch at the end there, but um, we're all over the country. We've got Wisconsin, Boston University, we've got Northeastern, Holy Cross, but Syracuse. There's so many to call, but yeah, they were a really special group. And we had a lot of skill and talent, and I think what made it all the best was being best friends and spending time together. So
Now, you also got the opportunity to play for Team USA in last summer's U18 World Championships. Talk about what that experience meant to you and what you took away from it, getting to represent the USA.
I think it's a dream of most hockey players to represent their country and wear that jersey. And I think that entire experience is a learning curve, and just taking it all in and enjoying the experience was amazing. And I think especially being home with the home crowd and everything, that was amazing, and the facilities that they set up. But yeah, it was one of the most surreal experiences of my life.
And was it weird sort of having it transition to the summer? Because I know originally it was supposed to be in Sweden where it is this year, and then they canceled it, and then they moved it. How'd you sort of handle those challenges of just the tournament getting moved around before it actually happened?
I think when it got canceled, we as a team made a push for it, and we were determined to get it rescheduled. So I think sort of seeing our like movement come true and make a difference was amazing. And I think that sort of led us into the tournament it inspired. And yeah, we were an excited group to get together, and I think it was a fantastic experience. So.
Now, talk about your recruitment process to Colgate. What made you want to go there versus other schools you might have looked at? And yeah,
Well, at first, I was one of the weird kids where I talked before the deadline and then they put the rule in and then I talked after. So in the beginning, I just remember like I was a little freshman. I didn't know what I wanted, but I think after the rule change, I was really clear headed and I wanted a program that was going to develop me and provide me with the resources to make me myself the best person and player that I could be. And I felt that Colgate both academically the environment and hockey wise was the best option for me. And I think, I'm really happy with my decision. I couldn't be happier with my decision. And yeah, I'm super excited for these 4 years that I have here.
And what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? I know you said earlier in the interview that it was the speed, but did anything else stand out to you that was hard to adjust to?
Um, I also think one of the things that's underrated is you're walking into a team with a whole new environment from what you've been in the past, especially for me being at an organization for almost 6 years before. So I think just walking in with new players and sort of finding a role was also an adjustment. But yeah, I think I adjusted pretty well to it. So.
Now, how do you balance both academics and hockey at such a high level at such a tough university?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but here at Colgate, all the professors want you to succeed. So whatever you need, they'll help you if you reach out, whether that's, office hours, extra problems, whatever you need. And I think the hockey world is the exact same. You want to do video, you want to work out. We have all the resources that provide you there. And I think for you, it's holding yourself accountable. And for me, I usually block out my schedule of when I'm going to class or when I'm studying, and then when I have practice. And I think that really helps with making sure that you're staying on top of both things.
So we're now in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit more off the ice. So first one is, what music do you like to listen to?
I'm a big country head. I think I don't listen to it before games, but I think whenever I'm out, that's probably what I'm listening to.
Now, there was a video with your U18 team last summer where you guys were singing California Girls before a big game. I have to ask if there was any behind-the-scenes story about that video.
Um, Not really. I think we just had sort of a playlist going, and yeah, it just popped on.
Now, what is your most embarrassing hockey moment?
I don't know if I have a most embarrassing hockey moment. I remember seeing one of the most embarrassing hockey moments, but for me, I would have to go with something along the lines of like making a bad turnover and having it scored. I think as a young player, it's always hard to see something like that happen, and it definitely happened when I was younger a lot. And yeah, just the feeling of like, oh, I just did that was not the best. So
What was like the one moment that you saw that was really embarrassing? Or was it just like a combination of things?
I've seen someone score on their own net, so
That's tough.
that's definitely not the best feeling, but it happens to the best of us. So
Yeah, I think the worst one I saw is I think someone scored during like a delay of penalty when they
yeah,
pulled the goalie and then they accidentally like dumped it in the own net trying to do a line change. So that was kind of tough to watch.
yeah, those are tough to swallow. Yeah.
Now, speaking of your teammates at Colgate, who has the best style besides yourself? Who's pulling up with the best pregame outfits?
Style. I think a lot of us pull up with a lot of good styles, but I think Dara or Dax, they both have really good game day style when they walk in, and they're business when they come in. So
Who's the funniest on the team?
Culty.
What's the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
Well, I was watching the World Juniors actually earlier, and that 14-year-old that pulled off the Michigan and all the highlights and leading the point or the tournament in points. I think that's pretty cool to see, especially for her at such a young age. So yeah, that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
hopefully, I don't know if she's gonna go to college hockey or not, but Colgate, that would be a pretty good player
Yeah,
to add to your team. So just want to put that out there.
yeah,
I guess for myself, probably just watching USA, Sweden. Obviously, it's unfortunate the result, but it was just it's also a positive thing to take away that another country is getting better at women's hockey and can compete with USA and Canada. So we'll see what happens in the gold medal game. But I just thought that was interesting, just what happened in that game.
yeah. I did too. I think the Finland and Canada game was a lot closer than people expected to. So
Now, last non-hockey question is, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I think it would be someone with really good leadership. So maybe like a former captain of like um, the women's team, or someone in the NHL that has a lot of leadership experience. I think everyone can always learn how to be the better leader, and I think that's really important to skills to have, and I would love to have more of those. So
Yeah, that's a good answer. I would say if I had to pick anyone, someone like that, probably just Patrice Bergeron, because I think he's the best captain in the NHL, and he's been doing it for like so long. So that's probably what I would go with.
that's a good answer.
Now, getting back to some hockey questions now, for all the younger listeners that listen to this podcast, what advice would you give them on what it takes to make it to the Division 1 level?
I think ultimately it's how hard you work for it and how bad you want it. I think there are countless opportunities that have the right resources and to make college hockey, and if you don't want it, you'll get it. I mean, I came from a really strong program, but there are plenty of people that come from really far places and still make it. So I mean, I've got a few teammates that are from far places, and they still found ways to take the experiences that they needed to put themselves in the position to get recruited. And I would just say if you want it that bad and if you have that much hard work, you'll find the places you need to go, and they'll pave the path for you for college hockey. So
Now, what should be done to help grow women's hockey, in your opinion?
I think it's really growing, and it's great to see. And I think just supporting all the movements that are going on, and I think like one day when I'm have a big enough platform to promote it for myself, I think that would be amazing too. But I think keep pushing for the equality and the movements that are going on, and I think improvements are being made. So
Now, do you have any shout outs you want to give to your teammates, family members, friends, former teammates, or anyone in particular? Feel free to give them a shout out, or you can just plug in something if you want to promote something. Feel free, the floor is all yours.
I'd love to I'd shout out my family, all the sacrifices and everything they made for me to get to where I am today, driving me to rinks and everything like that. I also want to give a shout out to my Little Caesars teammates, which, Clara, Casey, Gabby, Kaya, all of them, Kirsten, pushing me to be the best player that I could be in an amateur, and pushing me to be the best player that I can be in college. And that's amazing to have. And then obviously everyone here at Colgate for just wanting me to be successful, and that's amazing environment to have around you. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Elyssa. I really appreciate your time. It means so much to myself, and I'm wishing you nothing but the best, both on and off the ice, for the rest of this year and the rest of your collegiate career and beyond. And it's great to see the success you've had so far at such a young age, and I just wish you nothing but continued success for the rest of your future endeavors. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.